right, so you've created your 3 slides. You've got your title slide, you've got your curator statement, and you have your first exhibit complete. So now you're going to get ready to present. So in tomorrow's class, you will be presenting using Flipgrid. So as of right now, there are no guests coming to your museum yet. So almost think about this. You may have been to a museum before where you get headphones that you can wear as you walk around the museum. And it's almost like you've got somebody in your ear telling you about what you're seeing. That's what you're doing with this presentation. So it's a pre-recorded tour. Think of it that way, a pre-recorded tour that the person has paid for their headphones, they've got them on, and now they're depending on you to give them something extra. They've paid money for these headphones, so you can't just read what's in front of them. You've got to add your knowledge as a curator. So tomorrow you'll be in present mode. You'll start with your title slide. Of course, you can read the title, but you also want to say other things about it. So keep in mind, this is the first thing they're seeing. You may say something like, welcome. Welcome to our exhibit on the Harlem Renaissance. Today, as you go through the exhibits, you will specifically be looking at the theme, Strength from the Past. Then you'll see the curator's statement. Now here you can make a choice. If you want to read the curator statement word for word, you can. However, you also can just choose to highlight some of the most important things. So you could read it word for word, or you could highlight, saying something like, in the 1920s, the energy of the artistic world was focused on Harlem and the experience of Black Americans overall. Together, they shed light on many important issues and brought great beauty into the world. In this exhibit, you will see one part of this story. Experience these works with an eye to the past and the present, and perhaps they will remind you of the beauty and mystery all around us. So you can decide word for word or just highlights. You want to spend most of your time talking about your exhibit. Remember, you're only presenting one exhibit. First, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to travel down the river with Langston Hughes. The first thing you'll see is a photograph of the writer, Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes used his talents to reflect. Notice this little toolbar is in my way here, unfortunately. Langston Hughes used his talents to reflect the strengths of Black Americans. Langston Hughes was one of the most important writers of the Harlem Renaissance, a very good contributor who is still read today. And one of the reasons that he was so popular is because so many of his audiences could identify with his characters. He really sought to make his characters and his poetry accessible to common people, to celebrate the diversity amongst Americans. Specifically, in this exhibit, you will see the poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers. The Negro Speaks of Rivers explains the speaker's connections to the past through the use of figurative language. Go ahead and press play and listen as the poem is read. Now, I would encourage you not to actually play your videos in your presentations because they're going to be too long. So we'll just pretend that the person has pressed play, they've listened to the video. In the poem, you heard Langston Hughes make references to many rivers. He uses these rivers as symbols. Pictured here is the Mississippi rivers, one of the rivers important to Black American history and featured in Hughes's poem. He uses these rivers as metaphors for the connections to the past. Specifically, he says, my soul has grown deep like the river. So that figurative language really shows the connections that we have to our past. As you continue through the exhibit, you will see other writers and artists who also emphasized our strong connection to the past and what it can teach us. So kind of notice what I did there. I did read the labels, but I also added to what the labels said. Keep in mind, you are a curator, which means you are an expert on this exhibit. So you show that you're an expert by not just reading what's on the screen, but also talking about what's on the screen. And also think about your tone of voice. Not only are you an expert, but you're supposed to be excited about this. You're supposed to be enthusiastic about what you have created here. So be mindful of your tone of voice and your word choice as well. Today is for practice. You don't want to come in tomorrow not having practiced at all. So I encourage you to practice it a few times. Put yourself on Flipgrid, practice it a few times, be comfortable with it so that tomorrow you can go through your presentation smoothly and confidently and expertly.